Ex-FBI agent, Biggie filmmakers, sealed court docs reveal killer, cover-up after Biggie Smalls' death. Death Row Records founder Marion Suge Knight financed the hit on Brooklyn rapper Notorious B.I.G., an execution carried out by Nation of Islam convert and hired hitman Amir Muhammad with the help of corrupt Los Angeles cops, according to an FBI agent who worked the case and sources who have seen sealed court documents. All the evidence points to Amir Muhammad. He's the one who pulled the trigger. Retired FBI agent Phil Carson, who worked the case for 2 years, claimed there were plenty of others who helped orchestrate it, and allowed him to pull the trigger. The alleged cover-up was the biggest miscarriage of justice in my 20-year career at the FBI, said Carson. I had evidence that LAPD officers were involved and I was shut down by the LAPD and city attorneys inside Los Angeles. Christopher Wallace, aka the Notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls, was 24 when he was sensationally gunned down on a Los Angeles street in the early morning of March 9, 1997. But Carson and film producer Don Sikorsky, whose movie City of Lies chronicles the murder, its probe and the aftermath, the murder itself is no mystery. All the answers are in black and white, Sikorsky said, claiming that he and City of Lies director Brad Furman are among the few people who have read the sealed court files behind the unsolved murder. Amir Muhammad, aka Harry Billups, the godparent to LAPD officer David Mack's 2 children, has been identified by several sources as the trigger man, reads the formal FBI request, penned by Carson, that the investigation be given a Los Angeles case file number. Mack is a registered owner of a 1995 black SS Impala with chrome wheels, the exact description given as being driven by Wallace's shooter. The original target was not Biggie, said Carson, but Sean Puffy Combs, who was in the vehicle ahead of Biggie's SUV on the night of the murder. Carson said he shared this information with Combs and that the record label exec was pretty freaked out to learn that he was the intended hit. The civil case filed against the LAPD by the Wallace family in 2002 contains much of the evidence about the murder but remains sealed under order of a federal judge. The criminal investigation into the murder officially remains open, according to the LAPD. But, say Sikorsky and Carson, there has been little to no activity on the case for years. But his rap skills were legend on the streets. The Source magazine profiled Biggie in a 1992 feature about insane talent. Upstart Entertainment executive Combs read the article and met Biggie for the first time at Sylvia's, the soul food landmark in Harlem. His meteoric rise to fame began in 1993 when he signed with Combs Bad Boy Records. Biggie's first album, Ready to Die, was released a year later and spawned a series of hits, including Juicy, an iconic hip-hop track that now boasts more than 388 million YouTube views even though the song hit the airwaves well over a decade before the video platform existed. The album has sold more than 6 million copies. His second and final album, Life After Death, has sold more than 11 million. One person who did not appreciate Biggie was West Coast music mogul Knight. Biggie's lightning-fast ascendancy had helped fuel the East Coast-West Coast hip-hop rivalry of the 1990s, pitting Knight's LA-based Death Row Records against Combs' NYC-centered Bad Boy label, which had Smalls under contract. The crown worn by Notorious B.I.G. when photographed by Baron Claiborne as the King of New York is displayed during a preview at Sotheby's for their inaugural hip-hop auction. Notorious B.I.G.'s $6 plastic crown sells for $594,750 in auction. The animosity turned to bloodshed in September 1996, when Death Row superstar Tupac Shakur was shot dead after attending a Mike Tyson fight in Las Vegas. Shakur's murder, like Biggie's, remains unsolved. 6 months later, Biggie left the party following the Soul Train Music Awards in L.A. He sat in the back of a black GMC Suburban, the second vehicle of a 3-car entourage, when his vehicle stopped at a red light at the corner of Fairfax Avenue and Wilshire Boulevard. Witnesses told police a dark Chevy Impala pulled up next to Biggie's car and that the shooter, wearing a blue suit and bow tie, blasted several rounds into the vehicle. Biggie was hit 4 times, the final shot piercing several vital organs, and pronounced dead at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Carso said that the driver of Biggie's car, Greg G. Money Young, had little security experience. He should have kept driving through the red light, especially at that hour of the morning, to protect the passengers from a potential drive-by attack. Biggie and the rest of the East Coast entourage went to Los Angeles that week already harboring concerns about a potential Tupac revenge hit. Biggie became a stationary target, said Carson. Muhammad, a friend of corrupt LA cop David Mack, fired the shots, Carson claimed, citing eyewitness testimony and financial evidence connecting him to the murder. Muhammad was briefly a suspect but never charged. Now 61, he is believed to be a real estate broker in Georgia and goes by his given name, Harry Billups. According to Sikorsky, all evidence points to Amir Muhammad as the killer. When you read those sealed documents, there's overwhelming evidence that paints for you exactly who did the murder and why the LAPD covered it up. Investigators, he said, believed Mack and Rafael Perez, another corrupt LA cop on the death row payroll, were deeply involved in the murder. Their names are on the legal filings the Wallace family made in their civil suit against this city, said Sikorsky, and he believes if this evidence sees the light of day the family would win hundreds of millions of dollars. Suge Knight financed the murder, said Carson. Suge was ticked off that his cash cow Tupac was murdered. Suge had an accountant that was part of Death Row Records who helped do the financial side of things to pay for the murders. The cost of the hit is not known. Knight also festered over the belief that his friend Jake Robles was killed by a Combs bodyguard, Anthony Wolf Jones, at a 1995 party in Atlanta. No charges were filed in that murder. Jones was shot dead himself in 2003, also in Atlanta. Knight is currently serving a 28-year prison sentence after pleading no contest to voluntary manslaughter following a 2015 hit-and-run death during the filming of the movie Straight Outta Compton. City of Lies suggests Knight orchestrated the murder from prison, was insulated by Mack and other corrupt LA cops on his payroll, and that hitman Muhammad pulled the trigger. It's the same theory put forth by the late Detective Poole and by the Labyrinth book. Mack and Muhammad, then still known as Billups, attended the University of Oregon together in the early 1980s. Mack was a track star and Billups played football. The cop was later convicted of an August 1997 robbery, just 5 months after Biggie's murder, in which he stole $722,000 from a Los Angeles Bank of America branch that informants told the FBI was meant to go to Muhammad. The money was never recovered. Mack was released from prison in 2010. He has publicly denied his involvement in the Biggie murder. A portion of the files says the LAPD itself had alleged that Mack and Perez were involved in the Wallace homicide and that the city of LA attempted to block all discovery into who had been aware of the internal investigation and/or laid finger on it. Carson claims he brought his case, with the blessing of his superior officers, before the local U.S. Attorney's Office, but that they failed to prosecute for fear of its impact on the city of Los Angeles and its police department, or for other reasons unbeknownst to him. The LAPD was still trying to repair its reputation battered by the videotaped 1991 beating of Rodney King and the widespread riots that followed the 1992 verdict acquitting 4 officers. "I knew one day I was going to tell the truth," said Carson. "What I went through at the time from the LAPD was sheer hell." Sikorsky claims the contents of the FBI reports are known to key law enforcement officials, including former New York City and Los Angeles Police Commissioner Bill Bratton and current LA top cop Michael Moore.